Well, 2020 is over, thank goodness. Welcome 2021 and welcome to episode 1, season 7. We are excited to get a fresh start on our finances. Last year was pretty miserable for a lot of different people, but today we're going to start fresh with your overall finances. Welcome everyone. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth, of course. My name's Joey Anderson. I'm president of Peer Financial Advisors. And the show, of course, is not the show without the big man. There's Big Al Clopine, sitting right there. Big Al.
Good morning,
Season
Joe.
7, buddy.
I can't wait to figure out how to get a fresh start. Let's move on to 2021.
Yes, you need a fresh start.
I do.
Yes, I can tell. All right, when you look at what you need to do, like New Year's resolutions, number 1 on the list is probably lose weight, quit smoking, right? But get your finances in order. Get your financial house in order is always usually in the top 5. So let's get started with that today. That's today's Financial Focus. Hey, let's take a look at a few stats here. 88% of us are a little bit worried or stressful about our finances. And of course, this makes sense because people lost their jobs, they got furloughed, they got, we do reduced wages. All sorts of different things have happened. And if that's not a wake-up call to really take a look at your overall finances, to make sure that no matter what happens in your life, you're still going to be okay, and to reduce that stress level. Because when the stress level goes up, guess what? We make really bad decisions. So let's bring in really good decisions, and let's bring in the big man. He's smarter than all of us.
Financial fresh start. So let's start the year right. A lot of us want to kind of move on to 2021. So the first thing to do is kind of reassess our goals. So what are we trying to accomplish? And we'll kind of give you some examples of maybe what to think about. And then once we know what we're trying to accomplish, let's put our financial house in order. When we've done that, let's figure out what investments are going to make sense and how to fine-tune them, how to maintain them to achieve our goals. And finally, let's not forget about income taxes, because income taxes are high and they may go higher. We'll have to see. But there are strategies that you can put in place to reduce your taxes. So Joe, I think it's the right time to be talking about a fresh start, because people are excited about a new year. 2020 was tough for a lot of folks. 2021 there's still going to be a lot of hardships, but hopefully we're going to move through this. And one.
Yeah, well, every year there's hardships, right? I
Sure.
mean, 2020 was a little extraordinary, but each year things kind of come into play. And it's really good analogy here when you're looking at putting your financial house in order, right? Because the first step is to identify your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? So that's the blueprint, right? You have to get the architect in to build your house. You're not just going to start with your pool and then work backwards, right? You have the game plan laid out. Then you can start building the foundation, and then you can fine tune it by putting in all the different trinkets that you like, and then make it really nice and protect it, the security systems and all that. So starting with your goals is always number 1. So it's figuring out, first of all, what are your goals? I mean, sometimes people need help just to define their overall goals, because they really don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, the goals don't have to be that complicated. I mean, actually fairly simple. What are goals? What are things people think about when they think about finances? Well, maybe I want more emergency fund. Maybe I don't have enough in emergency fund. And this was one of the common things that came up during the 2020 year. Paying off debt is important for a lot of you. Buying a home is a goal. Putting kids through college. And of course, we all should be thinking about retirement, saving for retirement. And what makes this tricky, Joe, is it's not just one thing. It's often many goals all at one time.
Right. I would imagine a lot of our viewers have every single one of these goals on their bucket list.
Right.
Maybe it's not their house. Maybe it's their kid's house that they want to help with the down payment. Maybe it's not your children anymore because they're already done with school, but you have grandchildren, and you're like, oh my gosh, how are they going to even pay for school? Or maybe school's free by then. But you have to at least start jotting them down, because I think we think of this stuff all the time, right? It might keep us up at night, but as soon as you start writing things down and formulating an overall strategy, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, there's no question. I think writing it down is the key, because otherwise it's just, kind of in your mind and then you forget about it. So let's talk about, a lot of these goals are saving, right? So how do you save more money? Well, it's actually not really that complicated. But just for a little review, you increase your income, you reduce your spending. So easier said than done, but as you get raises, as you get bonuses, make sure you save some of that. Maybe try to increase your income, improve your professionalism at work so you can get more money. Maybe you have a side job. Maybe you look at what you could cut in spending. Maybe you refinance your home if your interest rate's high. So Joe, these are ways that people can actually then save a little bit more.
Right, and I think you look at your goals and say, hey, I want to make sure that I have a secure retirement. We need to boost up our savings a little bit. You know what? Our consumer debt went a little bit high over the last couple of years. Maybe you just start with those three. All right, then you start formulating, all right, well, how much discretionary income do you have that you can start throwing at these goals? Right? You don't want to just do one at a time because we find that that could be disastrous. So you want to split it up and say, okay, I need to throw a little bit of money in my savings account just to build that cash reserve, maybe throw another couple $100 right on the debt, but making sure that I don't forego my overall long-term goals. So here's a quick example, right? So let's say you have an emergency fund that you want to continue to build. You got to pay off some debt and of course your retirement savings. And maybe $750 is what you found by doing the exercise that Al just said. Hey, maybe you got a bonus or a raise this year, right? Or maybe you really tightened up your spending. Maybe you could refinance your house to find some discretionary. There's all sorts of different ways, but let's say you found that extra $750. Now you split it up into the different categories, into the different goals, right? And just make sure that you hold yourself accountable because, you know, we're reaching the goal and then all of a sudden something comes up and the goals derail or your plan derails.
That happens all the time, Joe. And so to really make this effective is you need to automate it. And so to automate it, it's like, well, what are you trying to do? What's your goal? What are you saving for? And then see if you can't automate that. Like for an example, an emergency fund, you'd want to have a separate savings account. Maybe you actually do an auto withdrawal each month from your checking to your savings, so it just happens without you thinking about it. Same idea for paying off debt. Maybe you have an auto payment. Maybe it just comes right out of your online bank account. And then finally, your retirement. If you got a 401k, that's great. That's automatic, comes out of your paycheck. If you don't, then maybe you do an auto withdrawal on your Roth IRA, your regular IRA. Make this out of sight, out of mind, Joe, because what happens is people don't do this. They end up spending and trying to save what's left over and very little saved.
I mean, we say this every week.
Yeah, we do.
Right? It's like you got to pay yourself first. Who's the most important person in the room? Right? It's you. So you got to make sure that you take care of that person first. I know it's like, oh no, I got to pay the power bill because if we don't have power, we can't eat. Yes, I get it. But if you save for your retirement, if it's out of sight, out of mind, you know what? You'll be able to figure out how to spend that net paycheck for most of us. Of course, you know, there's some that just can't do it. But if you look at it like this and just say, hey, I'm the most important person. I need to make sure that I take care of my future self. And then you categorize, if it's out of sight, out of mind, you will learn how to basically live within, you know, those means. And then looking at 401k contributions as well, that's really easy. Go to the match, comes directly from your paycheck. But paying off credit cards and debt in cash is a little bit different story just because you're going to have to set up those auto withdrawals.
Exactly, and I think that's one of our most important points is do these all at one time. So in other words, here's what a lot of people do is they just focus on one thing and then they wake up 10, 20 years later, they got nothing in their retirement account and you missed all these matched dollars. So for those of you that can save a little bit more in your retirement account, here's the current limits, right? So a Roth IRA, regular IRA, so it's $6,000. If you're over 50, you get a $1,000 catch-up, so it's $7,000. For a 401k, $19,500 is the maximum. If you're over 50, then you can do another $6,500 to get up to $26,000. So these are great things to work towards. You may not get there overnight, but you want to gradually work towards them. And Joe, as people save a little bit more, you know, you just get used to it, and then pretty soon your savings grows, and you're in a much better spot.
Right, and people get excited, right? You know, as soon as you start working out, you know, you got on the diet and you lose 3 pounds, you're like, this is awful, right? I'm not going to do it because it doesn't work. But then all of a sudden you do it for another couple of weeks and then you start shedding the pounds and you can see it. The same thing goes with savings and money. As soon as you start seeing that compounding effect, you get a little bit more excited, you get a little bit more motivated to take action. I want you to take action right now. Go to our website, yourmoneyyourwealth.com. click on the Retirement Readiness Guide. That's our special offer to you this week. It's updated with 2021 numbers. It's our Retirement Readiness Guide. Get ready for retirement with our guide. Go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com. We got to take a break. We'll be back in just a second. The show's called Your Money or Wealth. Hey, welcome back to the show. The show's called Your Money or Wealth. Joe Anderson and Big Al Clopine hanging out here talking about getting ready for retirement and getting a fresh start, right? It's a new year. Let's make sure you start out the year appropriately. Go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com. Click on our special offer this week. It's our Retirement Readiness Guide, all updated for 2021. So go there, yourmoneyyourwealth.com. Let's see how you guys did on the true-false question.
I should contribute to a Roth IRA and or Roth 401k when my federal marginal bracket is either 10% or 12%. And I would say that would generally be true. In fact, almost in all cases. And Joe, this is because you're going to have to pay taxes on your IRA, your 401k, when you pull the money out. If you can intentionally pull it out when you're in a low bracket, right, and do a conversion, then why not pay that tax while it's in a low bracket?
Right. I mean, I guess every person's situation is a little bit different, of course, depending on what your income is, depending on what your assets, depending on what your goals are. But just to kind of give you a heads up of what we're talking about in the 10 or 12% tax bracket. So as we're getting things prepared for our taxes, maybe the W-2s are coming in and you're getting your tax docs together and you're planning for 2021 or this year of saying, hey, should I take advantage of that Roth 401k or maybe the Roth IRA? Well, in this really simple example, if we're saying, hey, if you're in the 10 or 12% tax bracket, that's almost free, right? It's dirt cheap compared to where tax rates, I believe, are going to go. So if you're single, if your taxable income's around $40,000, right, you're in that 12% bracket. If you're married, it's $81,000. This is taxable income. It's not gross income. I would argue, Al, that it probably even makes sense for a lot of our viewers to do a Roth or to convert to a Roth to the top of the 22% tax bracket, which is double these numbers.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Joe, because when you think about it, it depends upon your situation. Those of you that have high pensions or maybe a lot of money already saved in retirement accounts, or you're just going to have higher taxable income because you got a business or real estate or whatever, you may want to continue to put money into a Roth 401k even when you're in a higher tax bracket, even convert. And now that 24% bracket, Joe, that goes up to a pretty high level. For married, it's about $330,000 almost of taxable income.
$350,000.
Yeah.
And those brackets are changing, right? We have a new president. There's an agenda coming out in regards to tax reform. We talked a little bit about it, but once we get a little bit more dialed, then we'll share that information with you. But as you're getting a fresh start now, you have to take a look at, what are your goals, which we talked about, right? And making sure that you map that out. Because how can you invest your money without knowing what the money should do? So as we dive into investing your overall retirement accounts or investment accounts, it's just looking at really simple things. It's like, when is the money needed? What is the money for? And when is it needed? That can help you really devise an overall strategy when it comes to how much money you have in stocks versus bonds, right? Bonds are safe, stocks are a little bit more risky, right? So if you have an all bond portfolio, but you don't need the money for 20 years, that might be a little bit too conservative and you're missing out some of rate of return. So it's just kind of looking at things, writing things down and saying, hey, what should we be doing this year? Are we a little bit closer to retirement, or maybe retirement got pushed out 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, well, I think so, Joe. And it also depends upon how you react to the market. If you know you're the type of person, if the market goes down a little bit, you can't sleep at night, then you want to have a more conservative portfolio. But really, Joe, as you said, one of the keys is how long you have to invest the money. If you want to invest in, let's say, a home, you want a down payment for a home, and you need that money, let's say, within couple years, 3 years, you probably don't want to invest that. You don't want to invest your emergency fund. That should be in cash. We're talking about money that's probably not going to be used for 5 years or more. Then you've got the ability, Joe, to invest and take a little bit more risk. It will be more volatile, but chances are you'll be in a better spot by doing the stocks.
Right, but I think there's two sides to this, right? There's an expected rate of return that you need to generate to accomplish your goals, but then there's also a risk tolerance that you have in regards to your emotions. So you have to kind of battle, the two sides of your brain, because, hey, I need to get a 6% rate of return on my money for me to accomplish my retirement goal. Well, if I need 6%, that means I have to have stocks in the overall portfolio. But if you look at a portfolio that goes down and then you pull out every time you see that thing go down, and then the market goes back up and then you invest back in, you're not going to achieve a 6% rate of return. So it doesn't even matter what your allocation is. You're still going to underperform significantly. So first off, you have to see, all right, well, what target rate of return do you need to generate? And are you comfortable with the volatility that portfolio will do once you start constructing it? Then you can kind of start tweaking things a little bit. When you get into the details, it's just make sure that you control what you can control, right? You want to control your costs, keep them down, keep them low, right? There's all sorts of exotic investments out there, and Al, with our experience, they're very expensive and they underperform. So why even go there?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you're absolutely right. You figure out what rate of return that you need, and then you design a portfolio to be able to achieve that. The safest portfolio possible to be able to achieve that rate of return that you need. Make sure you diversify, globally diversify. You have international as well as domestic. Rebalance your portfolio, because stocks will outperform bonds over time, and you'll end up with too risky of a portfolio. Bring that back to where the balance should be. And then make sure you tax loss harvest. If it's a non-retirement account and the asset goes down in value, you want to sell it purposely to take a loss, buy something similar. You'll get that market appreciation when it comes back.
Right, and it just goes back to the beginning of the show. Start with your goals in mind, right? Then you're starting to build your financial house. Make sure that you have some cash reserves, right? Then you're like, all right, well, here's my overall goals. Here's the money that I'm going to place to those goals. Then you create your overall portfolio. Keep it as simple as possible. Save on costs, save on tax. Make sure you're globally diversified, and then just put it on autopilot, right? Super easy. Guess what? Who does it? Not many people, because there's huge mistakes that we all make in regards to our money, right? Here's the biggest one that we've seen over the past just 12 months is that people got out in the pandemic, right? In March, it's like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be Armageddon. I'm taking my money and I'm burying it in my backyard, right? And guess what? They missed one of the biggest bull runs. I mean, let's say someone had $1 million portfolio, Al.
Right.
They're down to $750,000. They pull out of the market, okay, and then they're still sitting in cash. Right? And their portfolio would be probably today 1.5, right? Something like that. Of course, hypothetically. So they didn't lose 250,000. They lost almost 700,000, right? Yeah. Because they waited too long to get back in, or they got out, or there's always something that goes on to get in our way. To start saving.
And I think it's emotions. We buy and sell with our emotions. We tend to buy when markets are up, meaning we buy high. We sell when we're fearful when markets are low. We pay too much attention to the news. We try to time the market. These are not good things, Joe, because when you do invest with your emotions, you often make a mistake.
Without question. Your emotions and your investment strategy should be in separate rooms, okay? Just put them in separate rooms. Sleeping in different bedrooms there. All right. Making sure, right, we talked about this, not having the right stock bond allocation. You're retiring in 2 years and you still have a portfolio like a 35-year-old. No, you want to make sure that you have the safety in place to create the income that you need. Making sure that you have enough diversification. Hey, I just want Netflix and Tesla, right? Or Bitcoin. How about the guy that lost like $200 million in Bitcoin because he forgot his password? So get ready for retirement, folks. You can get ready with our retirement readiness guide. Go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com. Click on our special offer this week. It's all updated for this year, 2021, the retirement readiness guide. That's our special offer. Go to our website, yourmoneyyourwealth.com. We're going to take another break. We'll be back in just a second. Hey, welcome back to the show. The show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Joe Anderson and Alan Clopine answering money questions, talking about retirement, fresh start, all sorts of good stuff today. Before we finish the show here, go to our website, yourmoneyyourwealth.com. Click on our special offer. That's our retirement readiness guide updated for 2021. Yourmoneyyourwealth.com. Let's see how you did on the true-false question, folks.
My employer shut down our office for most of 2020, so can I deduct all of the expenses for my home office since I spent most of the year working from home? Well, you cannot, unfortunately, so that's false. And so let me explain. So in 2018, our tax law changed. Miscellaneous itemized deductions, whereas where you would normally take that deduction, is no longer available. So you can't do that anymore. You still can do home office if you're self-employed. Joe, there is an exception. You can take a home office deduction, miscellaneous itemized deduction in California, but it's very hard for an employee to qualify. So I would say in most cases, don't even try.
So with everyone working from home via COVID, it didn't give a tax break there.
It didn't really help, unfortunately.
Let's dive into taxes. What are some of the things that you should be looking at for 2021, as well as some still things that you could potentially do for your 2020 tax returns? You can still contribute to retirement accounts, IRAs, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, things like that if you're self-employed. So you want to absolutely make sure that you're fully funded there. If you look at gifting, right, Al, we'll see what happens with gifting and estate planning with Biden's. There's some shake-up potentially going on there. So you want to, if you're looking at giving larger gifts, maybe now is the time to do that this year?
Well, that's a good point, and we don't really know what's going to happen. It was just part of Biden's discussion during the campaign trail of changing estate taxes, lowering the exemptions, maybe even having a no step-up in basis, which that one, in my opinion, probably won't pass. But anyway, so if you've got a large estate, you might want to start looking at some estate planning techniques. Some other things, Joe, is giving to charity. Gift appreciated assets to charity. This still works. This is not new, but it's still a great strategy. If you want to give to charity, of course you can take out your checkbook, you can write a check, you can give it to charity. But if you take an asset like a stock or bond mutual fund that's gone up in value, why not give that directly? That way, whatever it's worth on the day of the donation is your charitable contribution deduction, but you don't have to pay capital gains tax on that. So, Joe, that can be a great way to create a tax deduction in a year where your income's high. Absolutely.
A couple of things, too, with the CARES Act of last year. There was something that was called the Coronavirus-Related Distribution, a CRD, and it allowed us to take money out of a retirement account, $100,000 from those retirement accounts, and you didn't necessarily have to pay the tax all in that year. You could either pay the account back over a 3-year time period or pay the tax over a 3-year time period. So now looking at this year, if you did take a coronavirus-related distribution, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to pay the tax? Do you want to pay it back? So there's some optionality there as well, depending on if things are going to get back to some sort of a normal with your overall occupation. It might make sense to pay that back. They also took away required minimum distributions. There will be a CARES Act 2.0 that's coming out. I don't know if they're going to suspend them again or change them. I heard that they might move them to age 75. But just know, if you have a retirement account, you are required to take dollars from that account and pay the tax on it. Last year there was a reprieve. You didn't necessarily have to do it. It didn't happen as of today for 2021. So make sure that you get that back in order. And of course, our favorite, Big Al, the old conversion.
Yeah, Roth conversion, right? Which we can't really have a show without talking about a Roth conversion, it seems. So this is where you have money in an IRA, 401k, 403b, something like that, that you got a tax deduction. It's a traditional. And if your tax bracket is low enough, you may want to consider converting some of those dollars that you already got a tax deduction into a Roth IRA. Yes, you pay the taxes on what you convert, but think about this. Anything that you convert now is in a Roth IRA. All future principal income growth is tax-free forever. It's tax-free for yourself, for your spouse, for your kids, for your grandkids. If they inherit them, it's a tax-free account forever. There is currently no required minimum distribution requirement for yourself and your spouse. For your kids, though, if they inherit it, they now have to drain that account for 10 years. And Joe, that's something brand new.
Yeah, I mean, compounding tax-free is pretty good, and it kind of can help as well as wealth transfer. So the kids don't get loaded up with tax. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's go to Ask the Experts.
I retired in 2020 and I've just heard about a mega backdoor Roth. How can I take advantage of that for 2021? That's Paul in Scripps Ranch. First of all, at least Paul, for you cannot take advantage of it. You have to be employed. And you told us you just retired, so you don't qualify. But Joe, what is a mega backdoor Roth?
If you have a 401k plan, right, that allows after-tax dollars or dollars that have basis that you've already paid tax on. I'm not talking about the Roth component. I'm talking about employers that have a plan that you could put the maximum amount into the plan and some. Right? So there's a lot of employers here in town in San Diego and Southern California that allow you to do that. Those after-tax dollars are eligible to be converted into a Roth IRA. So that's the mega backdoor, the garage door, right? The barn door Roth conversion. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So yes, you can do that if you're employed with that employer. It has to come out of the 401k plan if you're already retired, like Al just said. No bueno. Sorry about that. Paul from Scripps. So what did we learn today? Get a piece of paper, write down your goals. I don't care how small they are or how large they are. Just write them down. And then get your financial house in order. Now that you have your goals in mind, invest towards the goals that you just established. Of course, you want to get a little bit more strategic. Try everything that you can to control what you can't control. That's all we got for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Go to yourmoneyyourwealth.com. Click on that special offer. It's our retirement readiness guide, updated for 2021, I might add. yourmoneyyourwealth.com. Click on that retirement readiness guide. It's our special gift to you this week. That's it. We'll see you again next week. This is Your Money, Your Wealth. All right, good job, Big Al.
Fun again.